16th of Elul, Shir Klali, Parshas Ki Savo.
Right, so we're turning in the Parsha to chapter 28. In the long section, which is called the Teichacha. Rebukements, or however you will call it. And we're turning in chapter 28, we're turning to Pasuk Mem Zayin. Well, prior to that, in Pasuk Mem Hey, the Torah begins with Vo Olecha Kol HaKlolis Ho'ele U'Lugafucha. All these curses literally will come upon you and they'll chase after you, they'll run after you, Visigucha, and even catch up with you, Ad Hishomdecha, or Shomdoch, till you'll be destroyed, Ki Loi, Shomata B'Kel Hashem Alakecha, Mishmoya Mitzveiso. You didn't listen to the voice of the Eibishter, to guard his mitzvahs and his statutes, Asher Tzivah, that he commanded you. And therefore, V'hoyu v'chol li'eis ulamoifeis, that the mitzvahs will be literally a sign, and like a miraculous sign. Uvazaracho, not only in you, but also in your generations afterwards, ad oilom, forever. So what sort of a sign and what sort of a symbol is there going to be in each Yid and in his generations? Afterwards, ad oilom. And then he says, Tachas Asher lo avadetes Hashem alakecha b'simcha v'otuv levov miroiv koil. All this is going to be tachas, because of, literally in place of, Asher lo avadeto es Hashem alakecha. You didn't serve the Eibishter, your God, b'simcha, in joy, or v'otuv levov. You guys think? It would be interesting to know what was in your mind when you walk in a quarter of an hour late. What was the idea? Huh? You just don't even know. In other words, you act without knowledge, but it just acts automatically. That's maybe I'm a dragon. Anyway, Lagabi me, it's a very unacceptable dragon. So he says, Tachas, that you didn't serve the Eibishter, but Simcha, but Tu Levo, Mirev Kol, you didn't serve him with joy and with a good heart, from the tremendous, how would you say it, multiplicity of goodness that he gave you, Mirev Kol. And therefore, Chas v'Sholem v'avadeto es v'yavecha, and therefore you'll have to serve your enemies. Asher yishalchenu Hashem bo, the Eibush will send upon you or into you, v'rov, with hunger, with tzoma, with thirst, with be'erim, without clothes and without proper clothing, v'cheser koil, lacking everything. So I asked the Shaila, what is this pasuk in the middle? He says that you'll be, you won't listen to the mitzvahs, and that'll be a sign and a miracle upon you for the rest of time. And that'll be because you didn't serve the Eibishter, the Simcha B'Tuv Levo. So that sort of kilo comes in the middle like an explanation, and then he says that you will serve your enemies, and the opposite of Reiv Koil, that you had everything that you could possibly have needed, all of your necessities were even from multifarious Koil, everything. So then it'll be Rahman in Islam Choisa Koil, you'll be lacking everything. So I asked myself the question, that pasuk in the middle, Tachas HaShalom Avadat Hashem Lakecha V'Simcha B'Tuv Levo, seems to imply that maybe you did serve the Eibishter, but you didn't serve him B'Simcha B'Tuv Levo. Or maybe not. Maybe it means you didn't serve the Eibishter, and you didn't serve him, but you had everything you could possibly want, and therefore you should have been B'Simcha from that. It was Simcha B'Tuv Levo from your Reiv Koil. What that would imply that you didn't serve the Eibishter, but you could have, because you had everything you could have possibly needed. And that would have make a bit more sense why it flows in the middle of these terrible statements, and the punishment that seems to follow from that general statement that you didn't serve the Eibishter is that you'll serve your enemies. In other words, instead of serving Hashem, you'll be enslaved to enemies. And then instead of having everything that you could possibly need, then you'll be in a state of thirst and hunger, lacking everything. Choisa Koil. It's well known and brought down in Torah, in the Chutz Torah, Barichas, all of these retributions of these klolis, which are written both in Pasha Sefer Vayikra at the end, in Pasha B'Chokoisai. There's a whole series of rebukements, and the ones which are written here, and here they're exactly double the number of them if you count them carefully, and you'll see that they're even a little bit more than double. Over there there's 48 of them, and here there's about 98 of them altogether, if you count all the different details. So that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he gave over the Mishnah Torah, to use the expression, he really goes to town. You know, he adds here almost double what we find was written in the name of Hashem at the end of Sefer Vayikra. What that we read over there just before Shavuos, just before the giving of the Torah on Shavuos, and here we read it just before Rosh Hashanah. And over there we read it about a week or two before Shavuos actually comes in, and here we also read it about a week and a half or a week or two before Shana comes in. And so the Gemara notices that fact, and the Gemara says that the reason why we read it at this point, just before Shana comes in, oh, you had somebody else with you, why didn't he come? Oh, don't worry about it. No, that's your problem. No, I'm sorry, it's not your problem. So the Gemara says in Masechta Megillah that we read these inyanim just before Rosh Hashanah in order that the year which is about to finish should finish with all its curses, and they should begin a new year only with blessings. In other words, we clean off everything with the end of the year, so the close, and we could be to all the bad things in the past year, which is going past. We'll enter the new year only with good things and with blessings. As is the Gemara. And it says the same thing about the one at the end of Sefer Vayikra. So the Gemara said that's Shavuos, it's not Rosh Hashanah. So it answers that Shavuos is also a Rosh Hashanah. That Shavuos has got certain things about it which make it similar to the beginning of a whole new hashpah from the Eibishter, which make it like Rosh Hashanah. So that in a way, Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah have similar inyanim to that. So that means that we read this whole thing as it were to clean off the sheet and then to start all over again only with blessings. However, the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah and also in Tanya Perek Kofol towards the end, the Alter Rebbe says that things which in the Torah and Al Pi Kedusha look to be negative things are really positive things. If you learn carefully over there in chapter 26, you'll see that the Alter Rebbe teaches you that whatever appears to be a suffering or a negative thing not only can eventually seem to have brought good things with it, but it itself is really a Dovatei. And he gives a brief description over there of a hisbonenus and a self-reflection which can bring you to that conclusion. And he comes to that after having told us a biur in how you have to be b'simcha. If you look in chapter 26, he describes the whole necessity to be b'simcha. Don't hold your fingers like that. Then he brings this pasuk here, Tachas HaShaloya, which we'll see in a second. And then he gets in the second half of the perek how the negative things which occur in life, what people call negative, are not really the case, and therefore they don't disturb in any way the fact that you have to be only b'simcha. That's what's written there in chapter 26. What from that follows that even things which look to be negative, things which one might describe as suffering, things that we wouldn't wanted from Hashem that He would give us those sinyonim had we had the chance to make our own choice. Once they've already occurred, then they themselves are good, not just that they bring good eventually. But the whole trick is to know that the very essence of the thing itself is really ultimate Toi. And he connects it with the whole concept of Simcha b'Avodas Hashem. So from that we see that there's an essential connection with this pasuk, which warns us about a inyan shel Simcha, with the whole concept of where it occurs in the midst of this whole inyan of the rebukements. What the rebukements are warning you that negative things are likely to occur, chas v'shalom. They should never happen. But if they will happen, then you have to realize that they all come from such a level which under no circumstances would it interfere with the inyan of Simcha. And that how could you possibly be in such a situation where you'd be so far from Hashem that you'd fall under the influence of your enemies, and you would have to Rachmanin and try and serve your enemies and be botil to the Sitra Achra, to the Li'umah, and not only to the rule of Hashem B'Golui, then that is because you would misunderstand and you would lose the connection with the inyan from Simcha. So I mean that's a pretty mind-boggling inyan. That right in the middle, mamish in the midst of this tremendous birth, what the Gemara itself says that it's unprecedented anywhere in the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu, as we used the expression before, really goes to town here in this whole section. But right in the midst occurs a verse which somehow or another, that's the catalyst whereby you can understand the whole passage which is happening. Prepare yourself and warn yourself in a way that all these things could be avoided. Ali Deiseh, Cholira, they weren't avoided. Certain traces of them may have somehow or another affected you even as an individual, and you've given the power and the koyach by which to overcome falling chas v'sholem into a morash chayra and hipach hasimcha from what appears to be a rebukement or even a punishment or even a negative thing which has occurred in what you might call golui and human understanding of the matter. Over mitzad the Eibishter, that's not really the case. So I ask yourself the question, what is the key to this type of simcha? In other words, how do you get to a simcha? And how do you reach a madrega in simcha whereby you're able to, as the Alter Rebbe said in chapter 26, that you're able not only to be b'simcha b'golui in serving the Eibishter, but you're able to take all possible things in life, even the most what appear to be negative things in life that chas v'sholem shouldn't occur, but if they do, you're able to take them and you see how they're really inyonim tovim or mo'ilim in themselves, not just because eventually they bring to adority, but in themselves they're dvarim tovim v'elyonim. So I asked the question, what is the pitch line? What is the catch line to the whole inyan? So let's take an examination of the pasuk in a little more detail, and then we'll see how it relates to the pasukim koidim l'zeh and the pasukim le'acharim l'zeh, and we'll see how this pasuk undergoes a series of understandings from level to level through the great Meforshim, and once we approach the Teres Abal Shem Tov and the Teres Achasidus, which was Miskala Alidei Nitziei Chabad, then we'll see the whole thing takes a revolutionary move forward. Tachas Ashalei Avadato, all this will come upon you because you did not serve the Eibishter B'Simcha B'Tuv Levov, as we translated it earlier, Mereiv Koil, from having everything that you could possibly need, from the majority and multifariousness of everything you could want. Comes along Rashi. Now Rashi doesn't concern himself at the beginning of the pasuk, only with the end. Now Rashi says, Mereiv Koil, be oid at a time when when you had everything you could possibly want. In other words, that the word Meirev Koil means that you didn't do or did do whatever you did and however you did it, but you were in a situation where you had everything that one could possibly want, summed up by the expression Kol Tui, everything that could be imagined to be good. In other words, you were at a period where they actually gave you everything one could imagine to be good. So, so to Shaila, what did Rashi mean? Well, how does he understand the first part of the pasuk? Because he doesn't really tell us openly. Comes along the Rebbe the Talmud Tzedek in his great sefer on the parashiyos of the Shavua of Chassidus called the HaTorah. And in the Torah, the Rebbe the Talmud Tzedek teaches Rashi as meaning that Rashi learns the pasuk. Its simple meaning, Tachas Hashaloi Avadato es Hashem Alakecha, means that you didn't serve the Eibishter. Tachas Hashaloi Avadato es Hashem Alakecha, you didn't serve the Eibishter. And why is that such a serious thing? I mean, not to serve the Eibishter under any point is very bad. I mean, you're supposed to serve the Eibishter always. But, he said, you were in a matzav where you had simcha, b'tuv levov. Why were you happy and why were you pleased with yourself? Because you had everything that you could possibly want. In other words, the simcha and the b'tuv levov are like a description of the matzav haruach, the mood of the Jewish people at that time, because they had reiv koil, because they had everything they could possibly need, and therefore they were b'simcha b'tuv levov, but they weren't serving the Eibishter. Tachas asher lo yavadet es Hashem Elokecha. When you were in a matzav of simcha to levo, because you had roiv ba'oid, the time when you had roiv ke. So therefore, said the pasuk v'yovadet es hayevecha. Rachmon litzlan. He didn't want to serve the Eibishter, so he served something else. You serve your enemies to the point that you have the opposite of simcha to levov and roiv koil. And now you have ainifa rav tzoma v'chayser koil. The exact opposite of roiv koil, and the simcha to levov comes with it. So Lefise, Rashi learns that the sin, as you might call it, a lacking, which brought to this tremendous punishment on the part of the Eibishter, was loyal that he didn't serve the Eibishter, and so therefore you served something else. Rashi learns like that, but there are pashtas. Because why would there be such a terrible punishment of avodat esrei that would serve your enemies, and you'd end up in such a matzav? And then the pasuk says in pasuk mem tes, Yisro Hashem alecha goy mirachoik mikatzei haaretz kasher yidei hanosher. Just like the eagle will fly at its victim from high and from lack of knowledge of where it's coming from, almost. The great Mephoshim tell us that that's referring to the Romans. It's referring to the Empire of Rome, and it's a reference to the destruction of the Bayis Sheni, the second base Hamikdash. In other words, that was like the end of everything. That was the beginning of the end, and it's still the beginning of the end. It's the Shorosh Umokeh of all the Tzoros and the Golos. Miaz v'ad achsho. And therefore, Rashi wants to know how could it be what is the Indian which lead to a Azazah? Therefore, he learned Pashtus. We had to say that because of the Simcha and the Roiv Koil, then Yidden left behind what is the Ik of a Yid, and the Ik of the Jewish people is Avodas Hashem. Serve the Eibishter, and the whole meaning of the Beis Hamikdash is al Gimel Dvarim ha'elam oimed al Torah al Aveda al Gemilus Chasodim, as we learn in Pirkei Avos. What the meaning of Aveda is the Aveda's Beis Hamikdash, and B'Pnimius it's connected with all sorts of inyan. Tefillah is connected to Korbanos Tiknom. Nowadays it's connected with the inyan of Aveda's Tefillah. Aber Tefillah Bisman Hamikdash, it was also connected with Inyanim Ruchniim, V'nailim, as is well known, when a person bought a korban, as is mavur in the Hemshul Posi Lagami Ba'arichet. But when you bring a korban, you have to undergo all sorts of Aveda Ruchnias to the Eibishter with the bringing of the korban. So the whole inyan of the Beis Hamikdash, the Aveda's Beis Hamikdash, is serving the Eibishter. You had the whole thing in your hands. You had the Beis Hamikdash, you had everything. And you had all that you could possibly need to make you serve the Eibishter. You had Roiv Koil, and you had Simcha, B'tu Levov B'yachadim Zeh. Nonetheless, you missed the pass absolutely. There was no inyan from Avodas Hashem, Kemoishe, Tzorich Liyos, Edafar, Rachmon Litzlan Avodat Esrei. Edafar, Rashi felt that mitzad, the tremendous strict implication of all the Pesukim, he had to learn that Tachas asher lo yavadet means he didn't serve the Eibishter klal. And that was despite the fact that you were in a matzav of simcha to levov. Why? Because you had, and he writes, Be'ui chahoy lecha roiv koil. Why you still had the roiv koil? Because Rachmani Niklan, after that, he didn't have it. Avamile, Lefise, Pasik is moving. The Hemshech Ha'inyonim, the Pasik gives us a clear lead into all it, and also the Pasik before that. that it became like an everlasting sort of ois and moifus that people saw it and they said, oh, here they had everything, they had to pay some mitzvahs, that all thing. And they, had it could, they weren't, I don't want to use the expression, they didn't do the obvious, all that implied and demanded of them, but pashtas, I keep shooting, to serve the Eibishter, all that you had. The hemshire can lead to us. So as a few other Pashtoni Hamikra, Forshi Hamikra, they'll have shot, but they also run away. But because we're short of time tonight, is in Be'ez Hashem, we're already filling the time of Shabbos Chayil, Shabbos the Shabbosim, the Tmimim, the Gam Tzarichas, we have to be Makatzer. And we move on now to a new view of the Pasik, which is taken by another great authority, which leads us to a slightly different view of the Pasik, but leaves us like in a middle point. And that is a view taken by the Rambam. What the Rambam brings down in his great work, the Rambam brings down this pasuk. The truth is, he brings it in two places. So I'm going to refer to the second place where the Rambam brings it down. And we're going to see that the Rambam learns a different pshat than what Rashi does. And that takes us a step further into the delicacy of the Inyam. So it comes on the Rambam at the end of Hilchas Lulav. Interesting enough, at the end of Hilchas Lulav, what everybody knows that Lulav is connected with the Inyam and Simcha, because it's written that you have to take a Lulav and then you have to be Somachta Lifnei Hashem Alakecha Shivat Yomim. So right near the end of Hilchas Lulav, the Rambam says like this: Hasimcha sheyishmach Adam b'asiyas hamitzvah ubi'avos akel tzetziva bahem. He said the simcha, what a mensch should feel when he does a mitzvah, and his love for the Eibishter that he should feel, because he knows that the Eibishter commanded him in these mitzvahs. Avodah gedoylohi. He said this is a very great avodah. Now notice he used the expression avodah. It's a great service. It's like a changing of ourselves and a breaking of ourselves, which is called avodah. Avodah gedoylohi. It's a very great one. Anybody who holds himself back from this type of simcha, it's proper to punish him. How do we know? Shenema tachash ashalo avadete es Hashem alakecha b'simcha b'tuv levo. He said, how do I know that it's a big avodah that you should serve the Eibishter and do his mitzvah stuff b'simcha from them pasuk? And he said, anybody who holds himself a big, how do you call it, yesh, somebody who's Megi's darker, he thinks, oh, I'm a big important knob. And he takes COVID to himself, and he doesn't give all the COVID to the Eibishter when you're doing a mitzvah. He's a choyte v'shoyte. He said he's a sinner and a fool. He said, of whoever casts himself down, and he doesn't hold himself proud to be a Matthias, no, he makes absolute nothing out of himself. Yeah, he says, Hu ha-godel ha-mechubat. He said, he is Davki, the great person and the honored person, and he is the one that we know that he will serve Hashem mi ahavo. V'chein David HaMelech, and this is what we find by David HaMelech, Melech Yisrael. Oma v'nikloisi oid mizois, v'ha'ishi shafo be'enoi. Yeah, when he danced in front of the Oren, when Dora Miller returned the Oren, then Michal Bashaul, she was the son, the daughter of the deceased king. She looked out the window and she saw Dora Miller dancing, and she said, "This is the king of Israel. This is the way he behaves. Look at the way he's dancing around her in front of the Oren Kodesh." And she called David HaMelech up and she gave him Musa for having danced like that in front of the Oren Kodesh. So he said to her, on the contrary, I would make myself even more than that. I would try to make myself more, foolish looking in the eyes of the Brios. Why? He said, because Aishi Shofel Be'enai. I'm completely and utterly cast down in my own eyes. And he said, V'ein Gedula V'kovet Ela Lishmoyach Lifnei Hashem. Greatest Gedula and the greatest Kovid is Simcha in front of the Eibishter. And it's written what happened afterwards, that he went down, took a dance even more, though, in the Melech David, Mefazes or Mekarker Lifnei Hashem. Mefazes, means that he could, Mamish, threw himself around a Mekarker. The Rebbe said it means that he had gefived. Well, that was one of the sources that the Rebbe bought for whistling. In the Fabrengens in 770, and the Rebbe would turn to people and go like this, and particularly to Rebbe Abba Chatzira. He used to stand behind the Rebbe, and he was an expert at whistling. And the Rebbe used to turn him, go like this, where is it? And he would push two fingers and go, psh, this big, piercing whistle would sound over the huge crowd at some time. So, I saw it on many occasions, and then a lot of the more not so well-known Hasidim that were sitting all around, and they would all start whistling, and you would have these tremendous, powerful shrieks all over 770 of the whistles. So the Rebbe said that was David HaMelech, that he was Mefazes or Mekarker, Lifnei Hashem. So we see that David HaMelech, the Rambam puts down here a double Nakuda, that you demanded to serve the Eibishter b'simcha or b'tov levav, and if you don't, then God forbid, it's worthy to punish you. That's number one. And then he said the emes kovi of a human being, and the emes godless that a man can possibly reach, is dafki through the union of being the simcha lifnei Hashem, and the more the simcha, the more coverage you'll eventually end up getting. Even though, even in the midst of that medium to gain coverage, you have to act in a way that would almost look to be, tamua and wondrous in the eyes of a conservative human being, with normal concepts of the idea of covet. Says the Rambam Pik Fakir. The emes of covet is from the complete letting go in asimcha to the point of mafazes umakarker. Bodily let go and zu pfeifen, as they say in Yiddish. And like the Rebbe said, that was the emes of pfeifen after Welt. The Rebbe said that's the emes of whistling at the world. And so that is also one of the answers to nowadays people go around and say, "Oh, these Mishach system, they're overdoing it, it's crazy, don't do this, and don't say that, and don't say Yechi, and don't do. So exactly the opposite. If the Oilam Goilam says that's a little bit not mechubad, then that seems to be the proof that that's tafki the way to the emes of Gilui HaKovet. And like it's brought down in the Medrash, the famous Indian, but it's also connected with Simcha. And over there the Rambam writes that that's also a Indian from Simcha Amitias. What can we do? It's not working. The Indian from Simcha Amitias, the Indian from Simchas Purim. And the Rambam writes over there a very similar thing. But he writes over there that the ich is to help the poor people and the people who are shvegim, the nivzim beinim, to help them and to be mereimim, the matzavruach, v'chuli. But he writes over there, but again to Purim, also the goydel inyan of simcha. And he said that somebody who's misameach other people on Purim is doim al shechina. He's just like the Eibster. But the Lashon will never occurs in the Rambam b'shum makom. But Daf Kitot, he writes, Azamin Sotah. What is the inyan from Purim? Purim was the Nitzachim over Haman. So if you look in the Medrash, you'll find that Haman, he went to children and he said to him, tell me the pasuk that you just learned as they were coming out. And the base of Seif was there. So they said to him, we just learned the pasuk Ucho Eitzu V'Sufa. Davru Dovelo Yochum Ki Imanu Keo. So Haman said, yeah, that was the pasuk you just and he turned to another child. He said, what pasuk did you learn? And he said, Vad Zikno, and he heard the pasukim that we say after that. And he has Sisu, and he has Sov, and he has Bill, Amaleit, and I will escape. So Haman heard that and he said, oh, Chafa. He said, so similar, I've lost this whole business. Because he heard from the Kinder. The kleine Kinder haben gesagt that was the pasuk that they learned. A few weeks ago, my son was standing in a shul, a big Polish shul in Bnei Brak. And he wasn't my ears to walk over to the children and say, listen, tell me the pasuk that you guys are learning. He didn't try. But as he was standing not far from the door, when all these Polish Chassidim were leaving the shul, then he heard two young boys have a conversation. They spoke, one to the other. And there was a series of notices up in the town saying that you should come to a meeting where the Lubavitcher Rebbe is Chusay Yogan Aleinu with the other Toyarim, for those who hold that the Hepech of the Indian from Yankov Avinu Chai V'Kayo. And they were Moish bekommen, Toyarim, Shliliim, was weiß noch, the Rebbe is bye, he's over there in the cave, one in the plant. So one boy says to the other, he said, hey, my son heard him say, he said, hey, did you see those notices? He said, the state daughter, the Chabaders, they schreiben Seyah auf der Rebbe. He said, I heard that all the Chabaders say that the Rebbe is Chai V'Kayim, and there's the Melech HaMashiach. It was the state daughter. One child said to the other, he said, what's it written over there on those notices? The Rebbe say, yeah. So the other boy says, yeah. He said, I also says, Appelle. He said, weißt du, das ist ein anderer Chabada. He said, he said, repeat that that's not a real Chabada. Anyway, he said, das ist klar. That's clear. The Chabadis hold that the Rebbe Chai V'Kayim. That's what the other one said. So I mean, I ask you, you were just absolutely dumbfounded. I heard this conversation, but you was state taught. I mean, I didn't intend saying all that, but I saw this Rambam, and I also remembered as a Rambam in Ilchus Purim, where he writes that the emphasis Simcha is Davke Simcha in the Eibishter, and that is connected with the Indian from Purim, and Purim state, the Haman heard the children what they had to say, and from that he knew what the emes was. Opening back to our theme. I mean, that's part of our theme, but we return to a more orthodox treatment of our theme, and that is we see that the Rambam has moved forward here with a significant move. And the Rambam has said it's not the pshat in that pasuk, Tachas asher lo avadetes Hashem alecha, that you didn't serve the Eibishter when you were still b'simcha v'tuch levav miroiv koel. No, the Rambam says Tachas, the punishment is because you didn't serve the Eibishter b'simcha v'tu levo. That you didn't serve the Eibishter b'simcha v'tu levo. In other words, that you did serve the Eibishter. Nicht wie Rashi. Rashi learns he didn't serve the Eibishter, even when he had all the best reasons to do so. The Rambam says, oh no, you did serve the Eibishter. You did serve him, but you didn't serve him b'simcha v'tu levo. If somebody doesn't serve the Eibishter, that the etzem service has to be b'simcha v'tu levo, then roi lihiporami menu, then that's part of the rebuking. Chas v'sholom, there can be a punishment for not serving the Eibishter b'simcha v'tu levo. So you might say, me, I'm going to be a big server of the Eibishter b'simcha v'tu levo. I mean, that means doing sort of all sorts of funny things. I'm a very mechubed and, conservative individual, and I sit around and people respect me because I'm... Anyway. Was it Simcha, so therefore the Rambam writes it peak verkehrt. We see the David HaMelech. Did he add the COVID of a Melech Amiti, a Melech Yisrael? And later on, the Rambam says that Melech Mashiach will be Davki Misera David, and fully with the whole Aricha Zainian, Davki David HaMelech. He was the one that his Simcha was so great that he didn't even look at his COVID. And on the contrary, that's how he got the Emes of COVID. A Rambam Nifla. Al-Hapanim, the Rambam's taken as a step forward that the Pasuk reads, you didn't serve the Eibishter b'simcha v'tu levo. Me Rivkel, when you had everything. That's a further reason. If you had everything, then for sure you should have served him b'simcha v'tu levo. Not that the time is you should have served him. Those are zikr that you didn't serve him. There's no Matthias where you wouldn't serve the Eibishter, but they didn't serve him b'simcha v'tu levo. That's an amazing move forward. Now we come along to the time at the Ramban and the Rabbeinu B'chaya. What the Rabbeinu B'chaya, he was in the Tkufa Ramban, but maybe it's a little bit later. It seems that he might have even been a Makabel from the Ramban or a Talmud Mimen of Chulu. And they were a generation or so later than the Rambam. They were, they were after Rashi. Rashi was also after the Rambam, or at the time of the Rambam. It comes on the Rabbeinu B'chaya, and he learns to see the Rambam. He says that the whole taina is tachas ashalo yavadet Hashem l'chach b'simcha v'tu levo. And he said, what's the din from Reiv Koyul? Reiv Koyul means that you had everything, so that was for sure a reason why you it could have been b'simcha v'tu levo. In other words, that the ikar emphasis not on the word mireiv Koyul. The ikar words on tashalo yavadet as Hashem l'chach b'simcha v'tu levo. It's like one continuation up to the words tu levov, then it pauses and it says mireiv Koyul. Comes along the Rabbeinu B'chaya, and he says basically that idea. And then he says there's a special mitzvah in the Torah, and here it's very interesting to know whether the Rabbeinu B'chaya would actually list this as a separate mitzvah b'fnei atzma. Well, we don't find that the other codifiers do. A brief glance at the other codifiers tells me that we don't really find that anybody would list this as one of the mitzvahs. But the Rabbeinu B'chaya says, apart from the mitzvahs which Hashem commanded us, we do the mitzvahs, kak for kak mitzvahs, the Eibishter commanded us that we should do these mitzvahs b'simcha. In other words, there's a special mitzvah that when you do a mitzvah, there's a mitzvah to do it b'simcha. There's a special requirement on the part of the Eibishter that you should do that mitzvah b'simcha. And the Rabbeinu B'chaya says that it could be a mitzvah that you'll do the mitzvah. And so in the Yossi, when the day of judgment will come, and they look in the book to see if you did the mitzvah, they'll see that you did the mitzvah, but nonetheless you still might get a punishment. He said, because you didn't do the mitzvah b'simcha. In other words, that there's a separate punishment for not having done the mitzvah b'simcha. Even though you might get okay for having done the mitzvah. Now that's a pillar. That's a pillar. In other words, that you might get yourself, how do you call it, 1 foot out of Gehenna because you did the mitzvah, but then you might get another foot getting back towards Gehenna because you didn't do the mitzvah, b'simcha b'tul levo. And he writes over there that there's a special schar for those who do the mitzvah b'simcha dafke, that they have a schar mitzvah for having done the mitzvah dafke b'simcha. Yeah. And there's Rachman in Israel, a special punishment for not having done your mitzvah. You know you did it. For not having done it b'simcha. And he said that's what the Posuk's talking about. And the Posuk is taking a tremendous retribution of Yidden because they did the mitzvahs. They served the Eibusha, but they didn't do it b'simcha b'tul levo, mireiv kel, when they had all the good reasons to do so. Mitzad Gashmir, there was no problem. You know, they would say, why weren't you doing the mitzvahs b'simcha? Piliplois, manasah. Comes along the Rabbeinu and he doesn't finish with it. And he adds that before you do a mitzvah, you should really think yourself carefully. And you should really work out and maybe bring you some negavas. We don't provide negavas in these classes. Understand? Is a mela? There's a special requirement that you do the Indian b'simcha. You have to sit down and think before you do a mitzvah. Are you just doing the mitzvah, or are you also doing it b'simcha haru'uya liyai? In other words, before you do the mitzvah, you have to sit down and work out what's my approach to this mitzvah. In other words, another mitzvah, or another mitzvah, or another mitzvah. The simcha b'tul levo. And he brings over there an amazing medrash. One of these medrashim that the great Meforshim struggle to really work out what really is the point. But I give you a dugma. He brings a medrash in Ruth, medrash. Maybe we'll just read it quickly, and you'll get the idea. The Rabbeinu Bachai brings up this medrash. It's an amazing medrash. And he says like this: Omer Ritzo bar Mariyim, Ba HaKosev lelamedcho she'im odom eis a mitzvah, the mensch does a mitzvah, ya'asena b'leivov sholim. You should do it with a full heart. But some of them unfortunately said, what do you mean do it with a full heart? I mean, what do you can do with a half a heart? What does it mean do it with a full heart? That you should not only do the mitzvah, but you should do it by simple appreciation that you're doing the Eibus's, you're doing the Eibus's will here. You're not just doing a mitzvah that you're being commanded. You're doing the will of He who commanded you this thing. And so he says the most amazing thing, right? It's Ba'mariyah. She'ilu oye riyuva in yoidea shakarish baruch hu machtiv alav vayishma riyuva in vayatzi leo miyodam v'keseifoy hoye moiliche eitzelovim. That's written that Ruvain, he told the brothers, don't kill him. When they first saw Yisrael coming, they said, we're going to kill him. So Reuben said to them, no, don't kill him, put him inside a bore, throw him inside a pit. And he really intended by that to save them, to save Yosef from them. And then he thought, if he's in the pit, I sure realized that there was snakes and other unpleasant things in the pit and everything. So the great enforcement said, well, he reckoned that it wasn't really Sakonis Nefashis, somebody like Jesus, they probably wouldn't bite him. That's also a big pilpul. What did he think about that? But anyway, to throw him in the bore, and then it's written that he thought he'll come back and get him, when they've moved on and a hin and a her. So the Pasuk says that Reuven said that to them, Laman Hatzilo Isami Yodim Vahoshiva Elovi, that he did that in order to save them from his hands, and from their hands, and take him back to his father. So in the meantime, he goes off. We don't find Reuven around. When they actually threw him into the bore, Reuven wasn't there, and they planned all sorts of inyanim, and they sold him off to the Ishmaelim, and all of a sudden comes back Reuven. He says, "Where is he? He's not here. So Rashi says that in the meantime, Reuven went off, and he was busy fasting because of what he did about it with his father, or father in Yonah. Where was it? You went over there, looking for something else. What have you been doing? Ela kilo that Reuven, he didn't do the mitzvah with the ganze shleimus, with the ganze heart. He thought, he'll save him, but he also had his inyanim going. However, the Eibishter writes in about Reuven that he really did mean to save him. So it comes along the Yitzhak Bar and they said, what most will force him to find out to work out what's he really saying. But what he means is that if Reuven were known, that the Eibishter would have written, there's a moving fashion over here. They have to charge what they call toilet money. The old story that Elu Reuven would have known that the Eibusha was going to write in the Torah that he really meant to save him. Oh, he says, I'm going to be written in the Torah that I really meant to save him. Oh, then I would have really done it. But he didn't know that David was going to write that. And we bring about the same with Aharon when he went out to meet Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was happy. And so it's written that he would have known that the Eibusha was going to write about him that he was happy. Who would have been happy? And then there's another example here with Boaz when he gave Ruth to eat. He gave her a little bit of something to eat, and she left it over. Nonetheless, she was very thankful. So I said that if Boaz would have known what our mitzvah was to give Ruth to eat, and that the Eibusha was going to write about him that he gave it to him, who would he have done it? Then he would have done it b'lei b'shalom. In other words, that if we would only know, the Eibusha is really writing in heaven. And so later on, the Pasuk says, the Medrash says, who's going to write our mitzvahs? I mean, over there, by these three people, the Eibusha wrote in the Torah their mitzvahs. And they would have known that, who would they have done it? Would they put their whole simcha and the whole tuvlev into the mitzvah? We, who writes our mitzvahs down, Zok the Medrash, Eliyahu Hanavi mit Melech HaMashiach. And they state, Eliyahu Hanavi mit Melech HaMashiach, and the Yosef and some of the other great Meforshim here, and they bring down that Melech HaMashiach is sitting close at hand, and he's writing down all your mitzvahs. Alles what du tust, schreib deruf. I mean, in heaven they anyway write what you're doing. But Melech HaMashiach is keeping a special, so you might say, well, if I'd have known this was going to be written, Mamish Befeiros, in the Torah, then I would have really. So you have to know that not only the Eibusha is taking notice of what you do, but Melech HaMashiach is keeping a special book. As he stated in the matter. I remember they're talking about Tom Chetzmim here in Kfar Chabad. I remember the old Mashpir, Reb Shalom Chaim Zal. I remember he once said for bringing that the best way to get yourself to shuffle out of yourself a bit is to imagine that you were standing in front of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was looking at you, and he was asking you what's happening with you. Just imagine that you were standing in front of the Rebbe. That's the way you should picture yourself. Then you really get crashed. So Zot the Medrash, that's exactly what's happening. That the Melech HaMashiach is watching you the whole time. He's keeping a special cheshbon. What's going on with you? As he said to him, I'll hope on him. We see that the Rabbeinu B'chai, he brings this amazing in here, that these peoples, well, another, the Abish himself's got a right in the Torah, they did it. Would they have done it? Would they have really put everything they got in? So it comes to me, well, Melech HaMashiach's doing that for you anyway. He's keeping it special. So from that it comes out that, in a way, you got to know that when it comes to a mitzvah, and you got to realize that a mitzvah is a special divine opportunity. There's no opportunity like that. And when you do it, you've got to be absolutely involved in the mitzvah ad tachlischa, ad kol ma sheyesh lecha. And the way to know how is a person involved or not involved. What is the simon that he's involved and he's devoted, and ein malasot, he's fakocht ad gemira. If he does it the simcha mitiyas, then he's involved. If he doesn't do the simcha, then he can't really know, is he involved or is he not. There's maybe something else really causes him simcha. This is also a good thing.
You could do teshuva with simcha?
Sure. We can't be too from at one go. Sure. The famous man of the Friedrich Rebbe, he says, tshuva is from. The fee second, you can do as much tshuva as you like. We see then that the whole thing has moved forward with the Rabbeinu B'chai, that simcha is gora a mitzvah, and that the pasuk is angry, simcha, meaning that the inyan from simcha is a separate mitzvah and a separate demand that the Eibush will have. That if you did a mitzvah, okay, fair enough, but if you didn't do it for simcha, then you've got a new cheshbon with the Eibush. And these guys didn't know about that, as it were. They did the mitzvah, yeah. They had in mind, they were really into it. They didn't realize that they was going to write about, then they would have been completely. And that's the way you're supposed to be. Who's watching us? Who's writing us? Melech HaMashiach. That the simcha, well, that's a whole special union all the time. And therefore it's brought down the Arizal. We're still going to get on to the Arizal, but it's brought down from the Arizal. That the Arizal says that the Ikar Shachar that you'll be given in Olam Haba for doing the mitzvahs is for the simcha that you did them. Not so much for the etzem mitzvah. For the mitzvah, no, the Eibush will look after you. Did the mitzvahs, he'll give you your reward. But if you did the mitzvah of a simcha, that'll be the emes reward. That'll be the emes reward. And that's nice, according to Rabbeinu B'chai, that he said that's a special inyan. Miyuchad. In every mitzvah, there's the mitzvah, and then there's a mitzvah noisefes to do it b'simcha.
So how does that work out with we said last night that the Iker Amshacha is to the mitzvah loisaseh? The Iker is the bittul.
Yeah, mitzvah loisaseh is, that's what we saw from above. That's even higher. That's a mile a mile. The moment we're talking about the, to a certain extent we're also called the mitzvah loisaseh. They also got to be b'simcha. Lafise, the Rambam and the Rabbeinu B'chai are going in the same general line, but just the Rabbeinu B'chai states it with a new intensity that we didn't even see in the Rambam. However, now we're going to move further to a new idea, and that's what the Alter Rebbe brings down over there in the pause in the middle of chapter 26. If you look carefully in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe refers to this pasuk, and he says there's a pirush Arizal al pasuk say. What's the fellow's name over there? Are you taking notes? Are you? Because if you're not, then I'd like you to put the pen away plus the safer. Okay? or you can look in the Sefer, but only where we're referring to it. Comes along the Alter Rebbe there in Tanya, and he refers to what he calls Pirush HaRizal al Posik Zeh. How do we know the Pirush HaRizal al Posik Zeh? It's one of the quite amazing things that we know it from a story. We know it from a story that happened. And it's brought down, the story, in its first, as far as I understand it, in its first, text, in its first quote, in a Sefer called the Sefer Charedim. Now, the Sefer Charedim is brought down in Tanya in Perek Lamed Beis. And the Sefer Charedim was written by the Rabbeinu Elazar Azkari, what he was a contemporary of the Rizal, and he was like a shamash, Kavioho, a looker after in the shul where the Rizal used to daven. He was a tzaddik nista, Ma'id Naila, the Sefer Charedim, Nabal Charedim. And he writes at the beginning of his Sefer, which is all about all the Ramak mitzvahs, the Shasam mitzvahs, it's a Sefer on all the mitzvahs. He writes that there's certain conditions with which you have to keep the mitzvahs, and he brings out the fourth condition for keeping the mitzvahs is simcha. And then he writes the following story, that he says that he was once present when the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, that he was a Talmud at the Arizal. He said he was Ne'eman Beisa, he was his really trusted Talmud. He asked the Arizal, listen here, he said, you have reached such unbelievable openings of the gateways of wisdom in Chofmas HaKabbalah that nobody seems to have got anywhere near you. They said, we're also big, all those people, Rabbeinu Chaim Vital and the other Talmidim, they were big people, they were big, they'd learned the Zohar and all the Inyanim, they'd also been into the Kabbalah a lot. He said, nonetheless, we don't seem to have reached anything like what you reached. What is your secret? What's your line? How is it that you got to this unbelievable opening of the gateways of wisdom in the Chofmas HaPnimiyah, Chofmas HaKabbalah? So the Rizal answered him and he said, Mipnei Dova Echad. For one thing, Shekol Mitzvah Shahoisa Bo Liyodi Ha'isi Mekayimo Besimcha V'Gedela V'Adsuma Ad Ein Kates. He said, I used to be Mekayim the mitzvah Besimcha Gedela V'Adsuma without end. In other words, the simcha I had in each mitzvah was absolutely unlimited simcha, and because of that, that's why I'm better than all you guys. That's why I got unbelievable inyanim, what you guys didn't reach yet, only because of the inyanim and simcha shal mitzvah, shene'amar. How does he get to that? Tachas asher al pasik, tachas asher lo yavadet Hashem alakecha b'simcha v'tuv leivov meiroiv koil. Taich the Rizal that you have to serve the Asia of simcha. V'tuv leivov, this is border. But he said the simcha v'tuv leivov has to be as our simcha with his meiroiv koil. It's more than all the koil. It's more than everything the Asia can give you. Meaning, the Sefer Charedim brings it, and he says more than if you would have found all the riches that you could possibly find in the world. All the riches you could possibly find in this world, doing one mitzvah, you have more simcha than you have on all those treasures. And those are the pshat. So from that the results were thrown a bombshell here, that he's moved into the whole picture. We're not going further. We're saying, oh yes, you have to serve the Abish with simcha and b'tuv levo, and the reiv koil is a description of that simcha b'tuv levo. Well, it's not saying that you could have done it because you had everything you needed. No, that's a beer, and what sort of simcha? It has to be a simcha mi reiv koil, higher than all the koil, everything you can imagine. The Abish would give you. The simcha has to be more than that. Simcha gedelu atzuma ad ein kate. So the Rizal said that because of that, he was zeicher l'shari pesich l'shari hakochma. And some people bring down the Gilsa that he was Zecher Gili Eliyahu, that all the Inyanim he heard was from Gili Eliyahu. Anovi v'chule. It's all because of that Inyan for Simcha Shel. That Inyan for Simcha Shel Mitzvah. And we've moved up a new step now, higher than the Rambam, higher even than the Rabbeinu B'Chaye. We've now made the posik all one Hemshech. You didn't serve the Asia of Simcha to Levov, and what sort of Simcha to Levov? Meiriv Koil. It's got to be higher and more powerful than all the possible Koil, all the riches and treasures that you can possibly find. B'chol Olam Koil. Pretty amazing guy. And that is in one mitzvah. Kol mitzvah is a ball yod. So we move along a bit further, and we come to the Shloah Kodesh. The Rebbe Melech HaMashiach brings it up. There's a Shloah Kodesh. What's going on here? You guys, did you, when you're in Tavera, did you visit the Shloah Kodesh? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And say the Shloah Kodesh. You didn't go to Tavera? No. So anyway, the Shloah Kodesh. She's the Rabbeinu Yeshaya Horowitz. Well, he's buried in Tveria, right outside the Rambam, very close to the Rambam. And he wrote this amazing work, which is called the Shnei Luchos Habris. The two luchos, that he called the two the tablets of the covenant, Shnei Luchos Habris. And that is a sefer which is coiled in itself everything you possibly imagine. First of all, it's got to do with all the famous, philosophical discussions, and it's got to do with mitzvahs and with Kabbalah and with Nigla and with everything you possibly imagine. Ein door doesn't occur in the famous Sefer. That's well known. The Alter Rebbe was a tremendous follower of the Shloah Kodesh. Before he went to the Magid, he said that all of his inyanim are al pi the Shloah. After he went to the Magid, that he maybe, it seems that he was liberal a bit, that he said there were other influences now in his life apart from the Shloah. Until he went to the Magid, it's Ike Inyanim al pi the Shloah. So in one of his big passages, not far from the beginning of his great table, it's a huge, 2 great volumes, Shloah Kodesh. The Shloah Kodesh brings down, because he was after the Arizal, and he quotes this story about the Arizal, and he calls him Hoeloki Rabbeinu Yitzchak Hoeloki, the divine person. That's what he calls him. The Arizal, and he writes about him, and he says that Shaul always say, how was he saying to Gilei Ruach HaKodesh, and he says that Alidei Simcha, that he felt in Kiyum Hamitzvahs. He says that Simcha Zeh Yoisa Miroi Koyo, and he says Dahainu Kol Asher is Damin B'Yoder, anything that might possibly come into his hand, as it were. He doesn't write, all the treasures and all the things. It was just anything that might come into his hand. Anything that might be misdamin. Now that's a general statement. What does it mean? Anything that might be misdamin. Anything that might occur to him to gain. Any gain that he might possibly gain. Is a siman that the Shloah HaKodesh, that he learns that when the Arizal said Mirei Kol, that more than everything possibly that the Eivishter gave him or could give him, maybe he doesn't necessarily mean just treasures, das gashmistische Sachen, but maybe he means anything the Eivishter might give him, Daino, even Ruchniah. Afilu inyanim Ruchniim Boilam Salyainim B'chuleva. In other words, Kol Asher is Damin Liyoda, as I mentioned with the Arizal, is Damin Liyoda, who knows what? And if we move along, And we come to the Alter Rebbe in Torah, and the Alter Rebbe in Torah, in a place, the Alter Rebbe writes, what does it mean that the Simcha has to be be mitzvahs, Yeser miroiv koil, it has to be miroiv koil, more than all the possible goodness that you can get. He says, Dahainu kol tanugei, Gan Eden elin va'ataktein, v'kol tanugei elam abor. Schreibt the Alter Rebbe, that he says that when you do one mitzvah, you have to have more simcha than all the tainug that you're going to have in Gan Eden. What that means, and in Olam Haba, that means after Mashiach's going to come, and it's going to be Olam Haba, and all the simcha and all the tainug that you're going to have then, that's nothing to what you have when you do one mitzvah. And that's what the result. It's only that the Alter Rebbe's got a whole maimah in Tovkos Samach Beis. The Alter Rebbe writes, how come the result got to that? I mean, this is an amazing image. I mean, what's it got to do with Gilei Eliyahu and Gilei Chochmah and all of those things? So it seems from that if you really get into Simcha, and you really Mekayim Miroiv Koyel, then you get to know things that they only know in Gan Eden, and they're only going to know in Olam Haba, and yet you've already got them because you're Miroiv Koyel, you're more than that. So it's how would you say B'Klav Mosayim Yesh Mona, that if you got 200, you only got 100. So in a way you already know, and you've already got certain Giluim more than what all the Neshamas in Gan Eden have. And more than what they're going to have in Olam Haba, if you just do one mitzvah, mamish b'shleimus, that's what the Medrash said. The Reuven would have done one mitzvah, and you get the whole pekel. It's unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. Mamish eyes rolled out on stores. In other words, that the Alter Rebbe, he understood that the Arizal, when the Arizal said what he said, that the Arizal was talking like the Arizal can talk. Don't just touch it in Inyoni from this world. That's already Megushandik, to touch it in things of this world. That's for sure that the Arizal meant more than all the treasures that there are in the world. Those are zichras. That he thought that's a Megushandik way to understand it. The real way to understand it is like the Shlohim, Kolashe is Dami. Whatever could possibly come the Arizal's way. What is the Arizal's way? All the Giluim you could possibly want. No, Gan Eden Elin, Gan Eden Atachta, Afilo Elamah. Afilo Elamah Bua does it a pshat, Miroiv Koyel. Comes again the Mittler Rebbe in a Maimah, and the Mittler Rebbe is Mavayir, where it takes Roiv Koyel. And so he teaches that Koyel is the infant Sfiras HaYesod, how it is in Olam HaSalyenim, and this is Machaber, the Asoga with the infant Malchus and Midas. That's how the big Neshamas in the Olam HaSalyenim get their Hasogas through the Sfiras HaYesod, the Vodas HaKoyel, the whole big Arichas HaDvarim, Pili Plois Fareinin, of all upon him, he just teaches it into the word Miroiv Koyel, from all of these different levels that there are in Gan Eden Elyon and the doctrine for Koyel, Miroiv Koyel, from all of them. So with that, the reason I answered, that's why he knew all about everything. Simcha carried him to a Samat. So Manit, the Alter Rebbe brings in that famous Maimon, the Mittler Rebbe brings it B'Shem Alter Rebbe. And the Mittler Rebbe says that really the Arizal, he was a nitzutz of Moshe Rabbeinu. And Derech Agav, the Mittler Rebbe writes about that therefore he was a nitzutz for Moshiach. Because whoever's a nitzutz for Moshe Rabbeinu is also a nitzutz for Moshiach. I am Moshiach, and not necessarily from Shevet Levi, he's from Shevet Yehuda, what that's David. That's not a problem. We've already dealt with in the Shurim and so on, and I can't go into everything. I was suffice to say that the Mittler Rebbe connected with the Indian from Moshiach, and the Mittler Rebbe says that because he was a Nitzit Shel Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's written that Moshe Rabbeinu was the honor of Mikol Adam Ashal Pnei Adomi, he was the most humble person. So he said, how do you get to this Gila Asimcha through humbleness? And he said, that's why the Arizal said what he said, because really what he meant to say was, I got to this because I'm a Gila of Moshe Rabbeinu. But that's not a nice way to talk if you're talking with over. So therefore he didn't want to say that, so therefore he connected with Simcha. And Anova and Simcha are one and the same meaning anyway, because you can only feel that Simcha if you're absolutely bottled, completely and utterly bottled b'metzias. If you're a yesh, you'll never feel that Simcha. Only if you're completely and utterly bottled b'metzias, then you can feel that Simcha. And if I really what the Arizal meant to say was, he tried to Mittler Rebbe. The Mitzvah Rebbe says that really what the Arizal meant to say was that he was Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore he had everything and he had all that you could possibly want. But that Gufa, he couldn't tell everybody that. He had to put it in a way, and therefore he connected it with Simcha. But that's really one and the same Indian, because you can only have emes and Simcha if you're patel. If you're a yesh, you'll never feel Simcha.
You just don't get it right?
They try to because you're always feeling yourself. You're not feeling all these unbelievable things that are flying around. All you're feeling is yourself.
How do you get rid of the? How do you get rid of the yesh?
That's a good one. You have to say l'chaim and throw it out the window. Oh, also funny from and the Arizal said that something so tough that it's higher than the whole Indian. For Gan Eden earlier, we're talking about higher than the Indian from Mabur. Unbelievable. Comes again, the Rebbe Rashab is the Dormain from Rebbe Rashab in Tofarish Nun Dalit. And the Hemshech from Pesach to it, and he tights it, he just says it, the whole Indian from the Gilui, from Elam Habor, it's going to be all the Gilui, which will be after Tchias HaMesim, and it doesn't come to 1 minute. It's unbelievable, I've never seen anything like it. It's like we see the further Rebbeim go with this principle, the more it's just for each Rebbe to his teach get more and more. And it's unbelievable. The Indian from Simcha, which would be Vaveda Sakel, this Porach, Bekiyum HaMitzvahs, but pastors, in more than the whole, and that's what the Arizal meant. Yezim Miroiv, it's all one hemshech. So the intelligent reader immediately asks himself the unbelievable shaila. What are we going to do with Mashiach? What are we going to do? We're going to have a mitzvah. As I'm in Matthias of being able to be Mekayim the Eberster's world. Mom is to do a mitzvah with pastors. Like we see in Talmud, but like they have a Pasha, he does it with a simplicity and he gives himself away to Ratzon Hashem. That can open him up Simcha higher than all of the other Simchas, higher than all the other Simchas when Elam Mabor. And what are you going to do when it comes to Elam Mabor? Are you going to say, wait a minute, hey, where's my Simcha? You don't have these mitzvahs anymore like I had them. You know, what's going to be with the Simcha? Who are you talking? And I remember there was a great chassid from Paris was his name. Oh, as a matter of fact, you remember there was a young man came in from England to daven in our minyan, and I gave him a warm shalom aleichem. Remember he davened in our minyan the other couple of days. Mincha, just recently. His name was Paris. He's an Einichel from them Ron Paris. Ron Paris is an Einichel. I met him in London when I went to I know him from when he was a little boy, I didn't know it. So I met him more officially when I went to the Mashiach Congress in London last Kislev. So he's officially not a Mashiach, but he likes davening with Mashiach. So very rightfully so, in my opinion. So this Rabbi Avram Paris, I was once sitting at a Fabring, Rabbi Avram Paris, and he said, listen here, guys, you know, he said, what are you all waiting for Mashiach? He said, what are you waiting for Mabua? You know? He said, when she couldn't have, these eyes were bulged out. He said, she couldn't have Mabua. He says, foreign Shemrem with desire. He said, the mitzvah, the gishmach of traveling to the Rebbe, that's not going to be anymore. He said, the Rebbe will be here. He said, what are you waiting for, Oil Mabua? He said, oh, Oil Mabua is coming any second. He said, Mashiach is coming now. And he was the first chassid to say about the Rebbe that he was not. He was the first one. He called the Rebbe Melech Mashiach. He was the first chassid to call the Rebbe Melech Mashiach. Way back in Toshin Yud Gimel or something. He already said about the Rebbe. So he said, I remember him telling us, the Rebbe's going to be here. He said, then it won't be. So he said, what's he ate? He said, get on the plane now and go to Rebbe. He said, travel to Rebbe yet. He says, any second you're going to lose the whole thing. You know, it's going to be gone. Born to Rebbe. Not going to accept. So he pointed out the whole poignancy of the Indian with unbelievable poignancy. He said, on the one hand, we're all waiting for Elam Mabua. On the other hand, when we get Elam Mabua, we're going to lose L'chor. Rabbeinu Shalom. I mean, foreign to Rebbe is not going to be here with the whole geschmack of going to the Rebbe. That's what we hear. And the same thing with her. The ganze Simcha Shel Mitzvah is not going to be there anymore. It's all going to be just laid on. It was the terrorists. I don't know. Otherwise, I knew what the terrorists is. If I said it wasn't the terror. All I know is Mashiach's got to get here quick. But we have to say that for dealer, we're going to leave all the Hasidim and the Zam Matzah. Here they've been kind of mitzvahs and they got Simcha, believe safe, or believe Tachlis, Amirei Pearl, because they got Atzmas, Mamis, Ali they keep them mitzvahs, yeah? Higher than all the Giluim that will be in Elam Mabua. Those are going to take him into Elam Mabua. What are they going to do? So I was there once by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said that the Hasidim are going to go out to Melech HaMashiach, and they're going to say, Shalom Aleichem Melech HaMashiach, and he'll say, Aleichem Shalom, and then they'll say, Melech HaMashiach, what's going to happen with us? What's going to be with our Tzom L'chor Nafshi? The yearning. And the key with the mitzvahs and even for yearning, for the atzma. Now you go here, it's all going to be, everything's going to be all laid on, you know. What's going to be with us, you know, we're Hasidim. So Melech HaMashiach is going to promise the Hasidim that they will also have, even with all the Giluim, they'll still have Tzom L'chor Nafshi. So I don't know exactly how that is going to work. But I rely on my Rebbe, and he said, I was there, I heard it. That the Rebbe said, when Mashiach will come, Hasidim are going to be able to ask that they're not going to lose that inyan. They're going to lose be able to do a mitzvah in a zah, even that you'll be up in the atmosphere beyond all the unbelievable Giluim. There will be Simcha. Azam in Simcha, Azam an unbelievable brain. From Simcha it will be higher even than all the Giluim that will be when Mashiach. And therefore, yes, that pink this way, that all the generations, people said about Chabad, said them should go. Don't worry about it. What's going to happen when Mashiach will come? Everybody said, oh. Look, we got everything we possibly want. We got the cruise, everything. Everything is bottled from Matthias. Everything is Yudiyah, some Mafuz. Mavus alakus in the highest madregas from Yetias Hamahus. We got everything we possibly. Look at these Meshuggah Chabadniks. They say, "Oh no, we're not satisfied. We want Simcha B'Atzmusay, man." That's what we had to fill up as man. Agoras, Allah is coming. We want it now. So you can say, look at all these Meshuggah Chabadniks. They're never pleased, no matter what you do for them. They never have. Baruch Hashem for Zochah Mishugoyim. I don't believe we said that we're going to be a Zochah Mishugoyim. You understand? The only thing I could possibly suggest is that nowadays, if you look in Parshat Dvorim, in Lekutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe says that our simcha on the mitzvahs now is like the simcha that somebody has with a huge riches that he keeps in his safe. So he has tremendous simcha every time he does a mitzvah. It's like he's putting another million in his safe. Yeah? It's all locked away in the safe, but since it's inside the safe, then he feels tremendous simcha because he's got it, but he doesn't actually take it out and see it, but he's got it. So in other words, if we got this tremendous simcha from the mitzvahs, a simcha l'mayla miroiv kol, but we don't actually see it mamish b'einei basa, mamish kipshutei. The said, well, we're going to see it mamish b'podably. It's possible. But with that, the Chassidim will, they'll say, oh, okay, every so we'll settle for that, but, not absolutely, but, that's a bit of a way of being miyashev the situation. So we're not going to make active complaints about the situation, because that's a tremendous gilly. The safe has been opened and we're seeing everything for Golly. But we've been saying the whole time we want Moshiach now. Was it yet? So we're going to say to the Yerush, we want Atzmus now. Atzmus. Write it off. The Chabadniks, the so-called abnormal Chabadniks are never going to be satisfied. That's what it comes down to. And therefore, it's certain that when Moshe will come, that the great tzaddikim will sit, have the crowns on their heads, That's it. I can't quite imagine, a real Chabadnik, sitting with his crown on his head. He'll be running around saying, "Hey, is this the only crown you got?" A much bigger and higher crown than this one. And what we'll do, we'll put it on top of the tank here instead of putting it on our heads. What's the tank going to be saying? The tank's going to be saying, "We want Atzmus now. We don't want all these Yiluim." And that'll be the Simcha Gedera V'Atzuma. It'll be Demos. And that'll be what the Arizal meant. So I've been a little bit tantalizing. I literally would have thought that it's hard to be mafarish, mamish, but it's a healthy thing in learning Torah. To know that you meet the Rebbe Marasher, the Tachlis HaYediyah, Ashaloi Neida, the whole Tachlis, the full knowledge, just to know that you really don't know, or nonetheless, all we know is that we want Moshiach now, and that's only going to be a beginning. After that, we're going to want a lot more Be'ez Hashem. Okay, so are you going to say Yechi?
Ki Almeinu Moreinu Rabbeinu Melech Mashiach Le'olam V'od.